Hello, welcome back. So it's been a long time since I've done the first video on this, which I'll link in the description. Yeah, it's been a long while. I wanted to, I'm not sure exactly what I was waiting for before doing another video. I guess I wanted a lot of books again, and there is a lot of books. There's some books that I even forgot to include in my first video. So yeah, we're gonna be talking about those as long as some books that I've read in the past year. So yeah, I think I counted. I think there's 24 books I'll be covering in this video with little to no romance. So yeah, we're gonna talk about those today. Although one thing that I want to note is that on the books that I would consider little romance, there might they still might not be they still might be too much in the romance content, at least compared to like the standards of last video. So yeah, that is all. Let's get into it. So the first books I wanted to talk about is a series. There's gonna be quite a few series in this video, and that is the Mastermind series by Gordon Korman. So it's weird to say that I read this series, because how I read this series was my 7th grade homeroom teacher read these books to us. So she read to us the first book, the second book, and we started the third book, but we didn't finish it. We ran out of time in the year. So later on, I read the whole third book for myself. So yeah, so this series, I guess I'll just kind of sum up the first book, because if I were to explain the plots of the second and third book, it would most definitely be spoilers for the first books. So the first book follows a group of kids in this town called Serenity, and it is seemingly a perfect place, but the town has some secrets, and it is not what it seems. I think that's a good synopsis for this one. So yeah, I wanted to talk about this one in terms of little to no romance, because our group of main characters, we've got a mix of boys and girls. I think they're about late middle school, early high school age. So yes, there's a mix of boys and girls, but there is nothing in romance content in that regard. At least nothing that I can remember from the first two books. And I know in the third book, we're following them in pairs, a boy and a girl, yet there's nothing there. So yeah, I think this would be a good series for that. And I also think this would be a good series that like boys and girls could enjoy, unlike some other books we're going to be talking about. So there's that. Now, because these books were read to me in grade 7, which was like 10 years, nearly 10 years ago at this point, I don't remember much of the content to note. I probably should have mentioned earlier. I'll try to note content if I can remember it from these books, but yeah. But I think these are all fine for content. So yeah, I don't remember much content things to note, so I think it's fine for that. So yeah. Alright, next up is another series, and these books I nearly forgot to include. I think for some reason I didn't. I think I considered including them in my first video, but for whatever reason I didn't. So I'm glad I decided to include them in this video. And that is the Mean Girl Makeover series by Nancy Rue. Starting with two, I guess, middle grade series. So yes, so this series, you can tell it's more aimed towards girls, but it is a book about bullying from different perspectives as people in bullying. So the first book, So Not Okay, follows the bystander, who is named Tori. The second book follows the victim, Ginger, and the third book follows the bully, the queen bee of the group of bullies named Kylie. So yeah, and this is also a series that you have to read in order, even though it follows different characters. So yeah, I'll sum up the first book then. So this book follows Tori, and she and her friends have been occasionally picked on by this group of girls they call the Pack, and then so that they're dealing with some of that. But then one day a new girl named Ginger comes to town, and the Pack turns their attention onto them. So the Tori and her friends think, oh, I guess we're good for now. But Tori starts to feel torn and thinks that maybe she should do something to help Ginger. So yeah, there's that. I guess maybe why I didn't include it the first time was because I haven't quite finished my reread of this series as an adult. I've reread them so far in a weird order. In 2023, I reread the third book because it was my favorite and I already knew what was happening, and I didn't enjoy it as much as I did when I was younger, but I think it was still good. Then I reread the first book and I gave it 4 stars, which is pretty good. And this year I will hopefully reread the second book. So yeah, looking forward to that. So in this series, there's no romance. So in the second book, in the first book, there's no romance. There's kind of mention of like, oh, some girl might, or is there even? I don't even know. There might be mention of like liking boys, but like nothing that our main character participates in. And in the second book, Ginger has a friendship with a boy, and I think there might be some lines that might hint at something, but there isn't really romance that I can remember. We'll find out when I reread this. And then for kind of mostly applies to the third book, but kind of shown all throughout. It shows that Kylie liked an annoying boy, but like nothing happens in that regard. So yeah, that is all for this series, and yeah. All right, next up we got 2 World War II books, and this first one I forgot to include in my first video, and that is the book Number the Stars by Lois Lowry. So yeah, this book follows a young girl, I can't even remember her name, and she's living during the time of World War II. She has a Jewish friend. She has a Jewish friend, but things get more tense and things get harder. I don't even know. Things happen, I guess, and the girl has to be brave. I think that's the best of a synopsis that I can do. Now, with this one, I might have I don't know about an unpopular opinion, but like, I guess I'll just say it. So a lot of people, it seems a lot of people love this book from what I could see on Goodreads, and I didn't like it as much. I gave it 3 stars. Yeah, I think the main thing was that I thought it was too short for its own good, and that there was more that could have been done with the story. But maybe another part of it is that I think maybe why a lot of people like it is like, this is kind of a more middle grade or children's book, and I think a lot of people read it growing up, and I did not. I read it for the first time last year, so yeah, maybe that's also a factor. But yeah, from what I remember, there's no romance in this book. So yeah, there's no romance, not much content to note. There's a bit tense times, so it's not that bad. So yeah, in regards to content, but yeah, there's no romance. So yeah. And then the other World War II book, which I think is also middle grade, is Making Bombs for Hitler by Marsha Forchuk-Skripich. I'd be impressed if I actually remember that correctly. So yeah, this book follows a young girl named Lyda, and she and her sisters have been captured by the Nazis, and they get separated on their way to their different camps, and Lyda is trying to prove herself useful, and then eventually, when she's being assigned all this work, eventually she's assigned to make bombs. And yeah, so I said like this is middle grade, but I'm not sure about that because this book is quite heavy for like to give to like middle grade, just for clear, is like for like 8 to 12, So, yeah, I'm not sure how I would feel about making bombs for Hitler to any 8 to 12-year-old. Like I think Number the Stars that we just talked about, like I think pretty much any middle grade reader, any 8 to 12-year-old could probably read that. But this one, I think it would depend on the kid, and I personally would probably only give it to maybe an 11 or 12-year-old. Yeah, because it's pretty heavy. So yeah, I didn't care for this one as much. Again, only gave it 3 stars. I'm not sure why it was only 3 stars, I guess, looking back now, but... So this one, there's also no romance. Lyda develops a friendship with the boy at the camp, but there isn't any romance there, so that's nice. And yeah, it's pretty heavy. Not sure if I would give it to middle grade, but there weren't any content problems that I could think of, so yeah. Alright, on to the first book that I would consider little romance, but still might be too much for some people, and that is Real Not Perfect by Stephanie Coleman. So, if you've been around my channel at all this year, you would know I love this book, and I have warned you that I will not shut up about this book at all this year. Alright, let's see how well I can do for a synopsis for this book. So this book follows a girl named Tessa. She lives in Indiana, Riverbend, Indiana, I think is where this book takes place, and she has like good friends and all these things. The book starts, her best friend is moving away, so she's kind of sad about it, but kind of just, she doesn't try to seem upset about it. But then some other news gets dropped on her. She finds out that her parents are getting a divorce because her dad has been having an affair. So yeah, now she has to deal with that, and she's trying to pretend like she's fine, but she's really not fine, and like all that. So now, why I think this book might still be considered like not like too much romance, then whatever. So one thing that's found out about this book is that Tessa likes a boy who's her friend, and she said in the past that she told him she liked him, and apparently she thinks that he did not feel the same way based on what he said. And so that's the thing that's talked about a lot, and that's another thing that she's trying to pretend that she's fine with, but is not. So I guess why I would say like there might still be not enough, like too much romance, is because like there is kind of a lot of talk about that, but there's not really much of a romance that happens. And by the end of the book, they're not confirmed to be together. So this is the first in a 7-8 book series, so it might eventually be confirmed later in the series, but that's not with this book. So yeah, it might be too much. I guess take that as you will. So yeah, but I enjoyed it, and I hope more people pick this up anyways. So yeah. All right. Next, we're talking about another series, though a series that I haven't completed yet. We will talk about that in a bit, and that is the Chronicles of Narnia series. So I did try to read the series this year. I read these 4 books, but then yeah, like I thought like the stories was interesting, but the writing style of this time was just not working for me. And so I eventually realized in the middle of this book, I eventually realized, wait, why am I making myself read this series when I'm not even enjoying these books? So I stopped after Prince Caspian. So yeah, there's that. So the books in the series with absolutely no romance are The Magician's Nephew, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and Prince Caspian. Though for some reason there's a romance in the Prince Caspian movie, but if you've read this book, you know that decision is a little weird. So yeah, there's that. And then with The Horse and His Boy, what's interesting with this one in the romance content is that at the end of this book, it is told in a kind of epilogue type thing that a certain two characters that we've been following eventually got married. But during the book, there isn't really much hints that there could be something between them throughout the story. So I don't know if I would consider this a romance, but there's that case. So yeah, I didn't enjoy the series as much when I tried to read this, but I mean it's still a good choice. A lot of people like these books, and well, note for content, in two of the books they do use the A word to refer to a donkey, so just to note that. But so yeah. And next up, a book that I was surprised didn't have any romance is Sketchy Behavior by Aaron Mangum. So yeah, I read this book this year, and I did, I enjoyed parts of it, and this is YA, and I was hoping to read more YA by this author, but apparently this is the only YA that this author has written. Like, at least there are some Goodreads that are categorized as YA, but they're following 20-year-olds, not teenagers, which is what I would consider YA. So yeah, there's that. So the synopsis of this book. Oh yeah, just had to verify the main character's name. So in this book, we're following a girl named Kate. She likes to draw, and so one day in art class, they bring in a like police officer type guy, and the kids are given a description, and they have to draw it. And so Kate draws this description, and it turns out her drawing correctly identified, correctly sketched a serial killer in their area. So, of course, she is seen as a hero because of this, but this also puts a target on her back. So, yeah, there's that. Another thing I was surprised about going into this book, which, this is suspense, which I did not expect. I didn't like that aspect that much. I guess maybe just because I wasn't prepared for that. I mean, I should have probably figured that out from the synopsis, but yeah, there's that. So yeah, there was, like I said, there was no romance in this. There is a kind of friendship that she has with the boy, and there's some lines that imply there is some feelings there, but there is no romance. And this is also a standalone. And I think there are quite a few people on Goodreads who are like, there should be a sequel for this. And it definitely ended in a way where there could have been a sequel, but this book was published like 15 years ago, so I don't think we're getting a sequel, guys, which I'm sad about it too. So yeah, but yeah, good book. So next up is the book Frozen Hearts by Kara E. Ruig. So this book follows a 12-year-old boy named Askell, and he has ice powers, and there's a disease going around in this town, and to stop this disease, he has to track down the Snow Queen. This is a Snow Queen retelling. So yeah, so I rated this one lower. I rated this one 2.75 stars because I liked the story. Like, I liked the ideas that the author put forth in this retelling, but the execution I didn't care for as much. So yeah, there's that. But yeah, there's absolutely no romance in this. We do kind of follow the Snow Queen sometime, and it kind of talks about like a past marriage that she has, but it's not, I wouldn't consider that a romance. So yeah. Alright, the next two books to talk about I've read very recently. I haven't even covered these in a recent reads yet. So first up we have My Refuge by Ashley Al Salibi. So yeah, this book follows four girls who are in some way imprisoned by circumstances. So we have Eden, who has been hospitalized. We have Zara, who is in a refugee camp. We have May, who is stuck at home because of the pandemic. And we have Katya, who is in a bomb shelter. So yeah, I'm saving kind of more thoughts on this one until my recent reads. Basically, I liked parts of this one. I did overall like it, but I wanted more. This book is kind of short, and we're following 4 girls, and there's only 16 chapters, which means each girl only gets 4 chapters. And there's some I wanted from more than others. Yeah, there's that, but there is no romance in this. 2 of the girls have crushes, but it never turns into a romance, and they aren't even talked about that much. So yeah, there's that. And then another book that I almost forgot. Well, I guess I could say I debated on whether I should include this book, and that is The Outsiders by S.E. Hinton. So this book follows a gang of poor teenagers. So yeah, that's what I would say. I'm trying to sum this up shortly. One thing I was surprised by, well, I knew this before, but I was curious how it'd play out, is there was no language in this, but I was like, how can these characters not swear? And the thing is, these characters do swear, but the swears aren't written on page, so I appreciated that. And so yeah, there's not really a romance in this. There's talk about like picking up girls, and there's a girl character who seems like there could have been something there, but there doesn't end up being that. So yeah, I'd say that's another good one for little to no romance. Alright, so that is kind of, before that was just like a general list of books, but I wanted to have its own little section of books. These are books that are all from one author that I'm not a big fan of, but I have read a lot of her books, and that is Melody Carlson. So if you've read a good amount of Melody Carlson books, you would know that many of her books have romance, but there are some that don't. So we will talk about those right now. The first one I wanted to talk about was My Name is Chloe. So this is kind of complicated to explain. So this book is part of the big series Diary of a Teenage Girl, but this is the first in the Chloe books. So within the series there's like kind of a sub series of 4 girls. There's the Caitlin books, and then there's the Chloe books. So yeah, this is the first of the Chloe books, and this first one doesn't have romance, but there might be romance later on in the Chloe books. So yeah. So next I wanted to talk about another Melody Carlson series that I haven't quite finished yet, but I wanted to talk about what I've read so far of the books that have little to no romance, and that is the True Colors series. So yeah, I read the 10th book a long time ago, and then I later decided, I should try to read the rest of the series. So I finally did start reading the rest of the series last year. And what's interesting about this series with its romances is that a good amount of them have a romance, but it's not a romance that you're supposed to be rooting for, if that makes sense. Like it's not a romance that's supported by the narrative. So if that makes sense. I'm not sure how many more ways I can phrase it, but there are a few books that don't really have romance. So we will talk about that right now. The first book that doesn't really have a romance is the first book in the series, which is Dark Blue. So yeah, I was thinking there might be a romance because there's a boy character introduced early on, and the main girl and this boy character do eventually go to, I don't think it's not a prom because it's early in the school year. Is it homecoming or just a dance? Yeah, they do go, but they just become friends afterwards. And the girl says earlier, like, she wanted to ask out this guy earlier, but like that's talked about for like 2 pages. So yeah, I wouldn't say that much. And then another book in this series that doesn't have romance is Pitch Black, which is my personal favorite of the series so far. it has absolutely no romance. So that's good. And also, one thing I should note about this series is that really only the first 3 books in the series are connected and should be read in order. The rest are not connecting at all and can be read in whatever order, or not read all of them, just read some of them. So you can pick up the 4th book without having read any of the other books. So yeah, there's that. And then another book that I wanted to talk about in this series that is kind of leans more on the little romance side that I wanted to mention is Faded Denim. So it's talked about our main girl likes this guy, and through some conversations later, it's hinted that there could be a romance between them in the future, but that doesn't happen in this book. So yeah. In the last book, the last series, I wanted to talk about for this video, and again, this one might be a little bit, might be too much romance to be considered little romance, but I wanted to talk about these books anyways. The Life at Kingston High series. So yeah, I don't know what else to say, so let's just go through the book and what is there in terms of romance content. So the first book, no, that's not the first book. The first book, The Jerk Magnet. So the main plot of this book is that our girl, Chelsea, has a makeover and is now pretty, but the thing is she now only attracts jerks, and the one guy that she does like doesn't want anything to do with her. So there's the whole plot of like attracting jerks, but not really wanting these guys, and there's of course the guy that she does actually want, and that's kind of talked about a bit. But by the end of this book, they are not confirmed to be together, though they are confirmed to be together later on in this series, so do with that what you will. And then the second book, The Best Friend, this one there's a bit of a relationship. This one girl kind of likes this guy, and they kind of are together for a bit, but then that doesn't work out. So I would say that's a little romance. And again, like some of them romances in the True Colors series, it's not a romance you're supposed to be rooting for. And then the third book, The Prom Queen, there's of course the plot of our main girl running for prom queen, and of course she has to have a date, and she does. There's the whole stuff with that, and there's a guy that she does eventually go with, and you could say there's kind of a romance, but I don't know, there's not that much to note there, so I don't know if I would consider it that, but yeah, do with that what you will. So yeah, this is, I do like the series. Yeah. So that is all for this video. I hope you found some more books with little to no romance to add to your TBR. And like I said in the beginning, I tried to note some content when I felt necessary, but I think all these books are fine for content. So yeah, that is all. Goodbye!